His last words were a chilling mystery. On the morning of December the 1st, 1948, a man was found dead on a quiet Australian beach. He was impeccably dressed, his shoes polished, with no signs of violence. But here's where it gets strange. All the labels from his clothes had been meticulously cut away. He had no wallet and no ID. The only clue was a tiny scrap of paper in a secret pocket with 2 words that would ignite a mystery for over 70 years. Tamám Shud. It is over. This is the bone-chilling, true story of the Somerton Man, a case that seemed completely unsolvable, weaving a web of secret codes, untraceable poisons, and Cold War espionage. But a recent breakthrough has finally given our mystery man a name, and in doing so, has only deepened the enigma of his terrifyingly simple final message. The man on the beach? Our story begins on Somerton Park Beach, a peaceful suburb of Adelaide, South Australia. On the evening of November 30th, 1948, a few people remembered seeing a smartly dressed man lounging near the seawall. He seemed relaxed, almost asleep. One couple thought he might have had too much to drink. Another saw him stretch out his arm before it fell limply to his side. Nobody thought much of it. They figured he was just another person enjoying the last light of a spring evening. It wasn't until the next morning around 6:30 a.m. that the grim reality set in. The same man was in the exact same position. But it was clear he wasn't sleeping anymore. He was dead. When police arrived, the scene got stranger and stranger. The man was in his 40s, in peak physical condition, with the build of an athlete. His hands showed no signs of manual labor, and his expensive shoes were remarkably clean, suggesting he hadn't been wandering the beach for long, if at all. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, a tie, and a double-breasted suit. For 1948, he was a real gentleman, but he had no hat, which was very unusual for the time, and he carried no wallet, no cash, not a single piece of identification. His pockets held just a few random items: an unused train ticket to a nearby beach, a bus ticket, 2 combs, some chewing gum, and a pack of Army Club cigarettes that, bizarrely, contained 7 cigarettes of a more expensive brand. The biggest red flag, though, was his clothing. As police looked closer, they made a disturbing discovery. Every single label had been carefully snipped off. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure this man could not be traced. He was, for all intents and purposes, a ghost. Who was this man, and why was he so determined to stay anonymous even in death? The police had no name, no crime scene, and no motive. All they had was a body on a beach and a list of questions that just kept growing. The autopsy and the poison theory. The man's body was taken for examination, where even top pathologists were stumped. The initial autopsy was performed by Dr. John Dwyer, and later analysis by the highly respected Sir John Burton Cleland only deepened the confusion. The official time of death was estimated around 2 a.m. on December 1st. The man was about 5'11", with gray-blue eyes and fair graying hair, likely in his mid to late 40s. The autopsy revealed a series of perplexing internal findings. His spleen was enormous, about 3 times its normal size, and both his liver and stomach were congested with blood. His last meal was a pasty, eaten a few hours before death, but there was no sign of any disease that could explain why he died. The most shocking finding was the intense congestion, a classic sign of poisoning, and yet comprehensive toxicology tests found no trace of any known poison. This sent investigators down a chilling rabbit hole. They began to suspect he'd been killed by a rare and sophisticated poison, something that was either untraceable with the technology of the day or designed to break down in the body without a trace. 2 poisons, digitalis and strephanthine, became prime suspects. Both can cause cardiac arrest and are incredibly difficult to detect after death. The coroner stated that the evidence was not inconsistent with poisoning, but he couldn't prove it. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure, likely due to poison, but the case remained wide open. Who would have access to something like that? This detail transformed the case from an unexplained death into something far more sinister. It was the first clue that the Somerton man might not have been an ordinary person. His unusual physique also drew attention. He had muscular calves like a ballet dancer, and wedge-shaped toes, as if he'd spent a lot of time in pointed boots. Every new detail just added another layer to the enigma. The suitcase at the station. The investigation seemed to have hit a dead end. Then, on January 14, 1949, more than a month after the body was found, a new lead popped up at the Adelaide railway station. A brown suitcase had been checked into the cloakroom on November 30th, the day before the man was found. When police opened it, they were almost certain it belonged to their mystery man. Inside was a collection of clothes, all in his size, and just like the clothes on his body, nearly all the ID tags had been removed. But whoever did it wasn't perfectly thorough. They missed 3 names. The name T. Keane was on a tie, a laundry bag, and a singlet. Police searched everywhere for a T. Keane, but it led nowhere. No missing person reports matched. It was another dead end. The suitcase painted a picture of a traveler but offered few real clues. There was a dressing gown, slippers, trousers, and shaving tools. One item, however, stood out: a stencil kit, the kind used by officers on merchant ships to mark cargo. There was also a reel of Barber brand waxed thread, an unusual type not sold in Australia, which perfectly matched the thread used to repair a pocket on the Somerton man's trousers. This confirmed the suitcase was his. Police now had more of his things, but the man himself remained a phantom. He was a man with possessions but no past, a traveler with no destination, and a victim with no killer. And the most baffling clue was still to come. The Tamám Shud clue. Months went by. The Somerton man's body had been embalmed, and a plaster cast was made of his head and shoulders, but no one came forward to identify him. The case was going cold. Then, in April 1949, during another search of the man's clothing, a pathologist felt a small, hard object sewn into a tiny fob pocket in the trousers. It was a secret pocket, so well hidden it had been missed completely. An officer carefully cut the stitching. Inside was a tiny, tightly rolled scrap of paper. When they unrolled it, they found 2 words printed in an ornate font: Tamám Shud. At first, police were confused, but a quick trip to the library gave them a stunning answer. The phrase was Persian, from a famous collection of poems called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. In this context, its meaning was simple, yet deeply chilling. It is ended, or it is over. This discovery blew the case wide open. Was it a suicide note, a final, poetic sign-off, or a message? Police now believed the paper had been torn from a specific copy of the book and launched a public appeal, asking if anyone had found a copy of the Rubaiyat with its last page torn out. The story, already a national sensation, became a media frenzy. The image of the well-dressed man, the untraceable poison. And now this cryptic clue captured everyone's imagination. The Somerton man was now the center of a real-life detective story. The book and the code. The police appeal actually worked. A local man came forward with a story that was almost too strange to be true. He said that back in late November 1948, right around the time the Somerton man died, he'd parked his unlocked car near Somerton Beach. The next day, he found a rare copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam in the back. Figuring it belonged to his brother-in-law, he tossed it in his glove compartment and forgot about it. It was only after seeing the news appeal months later that he checked the book. When he turned to the last page, he found the words Tamám Shud had been torn out. It was a perfect match. This was the book. It was a 1941 edition, and it held the next and maybe most bewildering piece of the puzzle. On the back of the book, investigators found faint pencil markings. Under UV light, they became clearer, 5 lines of capital letters with the second line crossed out. It looked like some kind of code. The lines were a jumble of letters: WRGOABABD, MLIAOI, WTBIMPINETP, MLIABOIAQC, ITTMTSAMSTGAB. They brought in naval intelligence cryptographers, but even they couldn't crack it. The message was too short to find a pattern. Some experts thought it was just meaningless scribbling. Others were convinced it was a complex one-time pad cipher, a type of code that's virtually unbreakable without the key. The spy theories, which had been simmering in the background, now came roaring to the forefront. Was the Somerton Man a secret agent? Was this his final undelivered message? But the code wasn't the only thing in the book. Below the letters was something much more concrete, an unlisted phone number. After months of dead ends, investigators felt like they were finally about to blow the case wide open. The woman in the middle. The unlisted number belonged to a young woman who lived in Glenelg, just a 5-minute walk from where the body was found. Her name was Jessica Thompson, though friends called her Jo. She was a nurse, and when police questioned her, she denied knowing the Somerton Man or having any clue why her number would be in his possession. But her reaction when they showed her the plaster cast of his face told a very different story. According to one detective, when Jessica saw the bust, she was completely taken aback to the point of seeming to be about to faint. She looked away and refused to look at it again, yet she kept insisting she didn't know him. Her reaction was so strong that police were sure she was lying. But for reasons that are still unclear, they didn't press her on it and, respecting her privacy, kept her name out of official records for decades. When they asked her about the Rubaiyat, Jessica admitted that she had once owned a copy. She told police that during World War II she'd given it to an army lieutenant named Alfred Boxall, and this next part was a bombshell. The police now had a new name, and a promising one. They immediately suspected the Somerton Man was this Alfred Boxall. It seemed like they were finally on the verge of giving their mystery man an identity. They just had to find him. The Alfred Boxall detour. The search for Alfred Boxall began right away. Investigators in Sydney tracked him down, fully expecting to find out he had died or disappeared. Instead, they found him working at a bus depot, very much alive. The theory that he was the Somerton Man instantly collapsed, but the connection was too strong to ignore. The detectives asked him about the copy of the Rubaiyat that Jessica claimed to have given him. Boxall confirmed her story. He went to his library and pulled out the very book she had given him back in 1945. Police held their breath as he opened it. Inside, Jessica had written a verse and signed it Jestin, a nickname she sometimes used. But when they checked the back of the book, the final page, with the words Tamám Shud, was completely intact. This was a stunning twist. It meant there were 2 copies of the Rubaiyat at the center of this mystery. One belonged to Alfred Boxall. The other was the copy from the car, the one with the code and Jessica's phone number inside. This only made Jessica's connection to the case even stranger. Why were there 2 men in her life, both linked to this specific book of poetry? Why did she lie about knowing the Somerton Man when her reaction gave her away? And why did she point the police toward a living man? Was it an honest mistake, or was she deliberately trying to mislead them? The investigation was back to square one, but now all roads seemed to lead back to one person, the enigmatic nurse Jessica Thompson. The spy theories. With the Alfred Boxall lead gone and Jessica Thompson refusing to talk, theories spiraled into the world of international espionage. You have to remember the time. In 1948, the Cold War was just beginning. Not far from Adelaide was the Woomera Prohibited Area, a top-secret weapons testing facility. It was the perfect breeding ground for spies. Suddenly, every bizarre piece of the puzzle seemed to point to one thing: spies. The removed clothing tags, classic spy tradecraft to hide an agent's origins, the untraceable poison, straight out of a spy novel, a clean method of assassination, and the coded message was the most compelling evidence of all. What else could it be but a secret communication? Even Tamám Shud could be a code phrase signaling a mission was finished. Jessica Thompson's potential involvement also fueled these theories. Her daughter later revealed that Jessica spoke Russian and had shown an interest in communism. Was she a Soviet agent? Was the Somerton Man a fellow spy she was supposed to meet, or a rival agent she was tasked with eliminating? The jilted lover and Cold War spy narratives began to merge, creating a powerful myth. For over 70 years, this was the prevailing image of the Somerton Man, a handsome spy caught in a deadly game. It was a fascinating story, but without any hard evidence, it was pure speculation. Decades of silence. After that initial storm of clues in 1948 and 1949, the trail just went cold. The unknown man was buried in an Adelaide cemetery under a headstone that read, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach." For decades, that was the end of the story. The clues were re-examined and the code was revisited by countless cryptographers, but no one could crack it. Jessica Thompson took her secrets to the grave when she passed away in 2007. It seemed the mystery would never be solved, but the case never really faded away. It became one of Australia's greatest unsolved mysteries, captivating generations of detectives and armchair sleuths. One of those researchers was Derek Abbott, a professor at the University of Adelaide. He became so fascinated with the case that he dedicated years to solving it. His investigation led him to Jessica Thompson's family, and in a truly bizarre twist, he ended up marrying Rachel Egan, the woman he believed to be the Somerton man's granddaughter. It was long rumored that Jessica's son, Robin, was also the Somerton man's son, due to some rare shared physical traits. Abbott's persistence, along with revolutionary new technology, would finally be the key to giving the unknown man his name back. The modern breakthrough. The key to unlocking the Somerton man's identity was hidden in his DNA. In 2011, Professor Derek Abbott managed to get access to the original plaster death mask, and he discovered several hairs that had been trapped in it back in 1949. It was a long shot, but these hairs held the man's genetic blueprint. After years of painstaking work, in July 2022, Abbott, alongside renowned American forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick, announced the impossible. Using advanced DNA sequencing, they built a genetic profile from the hairs. They then uploaded it to huge genealogical databases, searching for distant family members. Fitzpatrick described the process as being like a gigantic 4,000-person family tree puzzle. They found a distant match and began building out the tree, generation by generation, until they zeroed in on one person who fit the timeline and description. Finally, after more than 73 years of anonymity, the Somerton man had a name. Carl Charles Webb. The Somerton man was identified as Carl Charles Webb. He was born in 1905 in a suburb of Melbourne, making him 43 years old when he died. He was an electrical engineer and an instrument maker, a skilled technical profession. In 1941, he married a woman named Dorothy Robertson, but it wasn't a happy marriage. Court documents from 1951 showed Dorothy filed for divorce because he had deserted her in 1947, describing him as sullen and rude. Suddenly, some of the pieces started to click into place. That name, T. Keene, on the clothes. It turns out Carl Webb had a brother-in-law named Thomas Keene, who lived just a short drive away. The clothes were likely just hand-me-downs. And the mysterious code? One theory that's gained some traction is that it wasn't a code at all. Webb was known to bet on horse races, and some now speculate the letters could be the first letters of horse names he'd jotted down. The grand spy theory was starting to unravel. The DNA evidence also delivered another twist. It found no genetic link between Carl Webb and Jessica Thompson's son Robin, severing that long-theorized connection. More questions than answers. Giving the Somerton man a name was a monumental achievement. We now know who he was, but we still don't know why. Why did Carl Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne, travel to Adelaide in 1948? He had separated from his wife, and there's some speculation she may have moved to South Australia, so maybe he came to find her. But that doesn't explain his death. How did he die? If it was poison, who gave it to him? Was it suicide, as "it is over" might suggest, or was it murder? Why cut all the tags from his clothing? If not for spycraft, was it the act of a man trying to erase his own identity before ending his life? And what about Jessica Thompson? Her connection is still the most frustrating part of the puzzle. The DNA may have disproven a biological link, but it doesn't erase the rest. Her phone number was in his book. She lived a stone's throw from where he died. Her reaction to his image was one of pure shock. Her own daughter believed she knew who he was and took that secret to her grave. What was their relationship? Were they former lovers? Did he come to Adelaide to see her, only to be rejected? Did she know how he died? These are questions we may never be able to answer. The identification of Carl Charles Webb closed one chapter but opened a dozen more. The epic theory of a Cold War spy has been replaced by the quiet tragedy of a man estranged from his wife and possibly grappling with personal demons. He wasn't a phantom from a spy novel. He was a person with a family and a life that took a dark, mysterious turn. His last words were, "It is over." For 70 years, we thought it was the end of a mission. Now it seems more likely it was the end of a life. The true story of what happened in those final hours remains his last and most chilling mystery. The Somerton Man case is a powerful reminder that even when you find a name, you don't always find all the answers. We've gone from a Cold War spy to a quiet electrical engineer, but the core questions of how and why he died are as mysterious as ever. What do you think happened to Carl Webb? Was it a tragic suicide? A lover's revenge? Or is there still a piece of this puzzle that we're missing? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If this mystery hooked you like it hooked us, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most compelling unsolved cases. Thanks for watching.